Firstly, let's begin with the overview. So this chapter is an effort to explain population as an asset for the economy rather than a liability, which means we should see the population, that is the kind of people that we have around, we should use their ultimate potential and capacity for economic development of our nation as a whole, rather than seeing them as a lot amount of people where we have to take care of, that is a liability. So you should see them on the positive ways rather than a negative way. You should see this kind of population as an asset as a whole. So this kind of population that we have ultimately becomes something called as human capital. So what exactly is human capital? Human capital, like we've seen in the previous chapter, capital is something that is measured in terms of finance or money. So when you say something is human capital, that means it's a kind of investment that you're making in the population by giving that population more education or training or medical care, so that people who are of ill health are properly taken care of, so that they can function properly, right? So this kind of investment that is made into such a population so that they can improve for themselves and for the productivity of our nation, that ultimately is termed as human capital. So this human capital, when it is uh, formulated in a very good productive way, it ultimately leads to the creation of something called as the gross national product, GNP as a whole. So like the other sources that we've seen in the previous chapter, this is also called as a human resource. So whatever human capital that you're putting in, so that ultimately becomes the human resource. So when the human resources that we have is further developed by becoming more educated and developing more skills, simultaneously happens that they are getting more healthier by more medical care that is given out. Ultimately, it becomes into this new concept that you see here. It is also called as human capital formation, right? So when it keeps progressing, when it keeps improvising and becoming better, this kind of investment is giving you a greater return in terms of good educated individuals, highly skilled workers or etc. That means you are producing high human capital. Okay, just like how if you put in more raw materials or if you use more higher kind of machinery into developing a certain land for quicker returns of harvest and ultimately greater amount of profit, it adds to the same productive power just as how the physical capital is doing, right? So you can also see, so this can be given that, for an example, a person is highly educated, right? I will give you two examples here, right? So a person is highly educated, and people with good education, when they come out of good colleges, they will be given a placement in very good companies, and ultimately companies pay them very good wages for the kind of skills and the knowledge that they've developed through their education. And the second example I will be giving you is, suppose a worker is highly skilled. He has developed many skills, and out of 100 workers he has around him, 99 are doing mediocre work. But if that one person is doing highly skilled work, there will be a little contribution to increased productivity. That is, in contrast, when you give it to the 99, that one person who is making the whole difference in production will be very big, right? So this you can see through the example. So as much as how physical capital leads into increase in productivity, even human capital does the same kind of impact. Society also gains in other indirect ways, because the advantages of a more educated or a healthier population spreads to those who also who themselves are not educated or given healthcare. Suppose you are in a village, and in the entire village you see an engineer or a doctor, so there will be small kids who are aiming to look up to them as role models, and then wanting to be an engineer or medical, follow their footsteps. So this has a societal impact. It spreads in the society. So, like I mentioned in the other previous chapter, human capital leads to the growing of the physical capital. How exactly? How exactly is this? Only if you have the knowledge, only if you have knowledge about something as to how to use this land or how to use this labor, what kind of work do we tell this labor to do. Only if you have knowledge of farming or any kind of business sector or a small scale industry, only if you have that kind of knowledge that you've read about all the things in the previous years, only then you can use all the physical capital into place. That means you can get the land, labor and capital as one together and make it functional only if you have the human capital. So the physical capital gets on to working only with the help of human capital. Just having physical capital is not enough. Just having money but no ideas is not enough. You have to have the money and then think of an idea as to how to go about with that kind of money in order to start something. Only if you can have the capacity to think and apply that thought and knowledge into something, you can make use of a resource. Otherwise it is very, very impossible. So this is what is an infographic that is showing you what exactly is human capital. You have doctors, right? They have studied MBBS. They provide to the society to serve the people in order to take care of their medical health. Then you have teachers teaching you in terms of good education and quality education. Then you have weavers here who's making clothes. You have the tailor here. So when you invest in something like human resource, they are definitely going to have high rates of returns in the future. This is no doubt. If you give good education to a person, or if you give good medical care to a person and make sure they're right on track, in the future they're going to perform very well in whichever domain they are. So we have seen a kind of past scenario as to where more educated parents are the ones who are pushing their children to study more, so they invest heavily in education than the parents who are not educated, because those parents have realized the kind of education, the kind of impact education has played on their personal lives, and hence would also want the children to follow their same footsteps. But we have also seen a case scenario where uneducated parents are not heavily investing in the education of their children. And these educated parents are very, very particular about nutrition and hygiene, and ultimately uh, formulating a very good, healthy mind and a physical body so that we can function well. So one of the country which is very, very known for investing in human resource, that is education and medical care, happens to be Japan. So you should also know Japan is geographically located in a very remote place. It's a very small country, and they don't have any natural resource. They don't have anything like coal where they can produce electricity on their own, and most of the sources are imported from other countries like USA or China. And these countries, despite having no natural resource, they are still developed or rich countries. How do you think that is possible? Have you ever wondered how is it possible that they are rich without having any natural resource and they're depending on another country for their resources? So the way Japan has become rich or developed is because they have invested the right kind of amounts on education and health, finally on people. So the Japanese people are given quality education, and those that are not able to function properly are given proper treatment so that they can get back on tracks and perform efficiently. So this is how the people are of sound mind and health, and with this they have used the other resources that they have, like land and capital, to build on other resources. For example, you can see how fast the place called Tokyo is being. Everyone is moving because everyone is moving, everything is moving so fast. Like, their technology is one of the fastest, and Japanese people produce one of the best cars, right? So they have used the land. They have used the land to build many factories. They have used the kind of capital that these people with good education and health have ultimately produced, and finally built many big manufacturing sectors for all cars and etc. So in terms, when they get to export cars to countries like India, they make a lot of money. So this is how the people's education and health has finally impacted Japan's GDP, or the gross national product.